Yes, Madam Chair. Last time we met was on June 30th, 2010. With respect to the site, our biggest problem, as I mentioned earlier, was the height of the garage out of the southwest corner of the site, and how that was dictating the topographic solutions. On Building 31, we had the most comments because it was the least developed. Things to do with spark arresters, window head heights, balcony on the south elevation, parapet wall on the north elevation, doors and windows. The elevations, our biggest problem, needed to reflect exactly what was intended. On Building 32, that was the furthest developed. We appreciated the effort on that. There were some comments about windows, the exposed duct chase on the north elevation, which was out of the ground, about 10 feet or so. We had some comments on the stairs and railings, stair and landing on the east elevation, and we had some proportion problems on the north elevation. Building 33, we had some proximity problems with the second floor balcony on the south elevation. Roof awnings, break roof pitch into a shed roof over the iron balcony on the south elevation. Increase some massing above the doors, add windows and shutters to the first level of the east elevation. Basically, that's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, will you reintroduce yourselves to the record? And
Katie?
oh, sorry.
Katie O'Reilly, Rogers Landscape Architect.
Thank you.
Casey Nagel, Gensler Architects.
Steve Upchurch, Gensler Architects.
Thank you.
I just want to start out by thanking all the members of the subcommittee. They've been very generous with their time in helping us work through this.
You're welcome.
So, you want me to thank them again?
He's our stooge.
Yeah. So the subcommittee have become very intimate with this process and this project. So I guess what we're doing here is we're going to reintroduce it to the rest of you. So this green quadrant is the quadrant that we're looking at as a whole, that Mission Village falls into. So these buildings, basically the 30 and 31 are 1.5. There's 1 story, 2 keys downstairs, 1 key upstairs. They kind of stack up the hill. So there's a low part in the front on the south end of 30, and a low part on the south end of 31. So they kind of march up the hill. 34B here is actually now a separate building and sits at the grade level. So it's on a very similar grade to 30, and 34B is up 1 floor above. So 34B, 33, 32, and 31 all sit on the top of the garage podium. Yeah, I just want to. I know it's probably been a long time since HLC's been out to the site, but these are representative of the buildings that are currently that we're replacing.
Why are you replacing?
So I just want to show you that these are. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very, very nice upgrade for this area, and the cars, of course, would be underground at this point as well. So I'm just bringing that up real quick.
Actually, yes. You want these? Those 2 copies, the same thing.
2 copies.
Yeah.
So again, this is just to blow up, differentiating 34A and 34B in the zone.
Can you point out the garage level below on that previous elevation?
Sure.
So that the commissioners are oriented to what you're having to deal with below?
This is the garage outline right here,
Okay.
and the garage entrance is coming in through.
Also,
Sure.
talk a little bit about what the topography is doing around that, if you don't mind.
Sure. It's the
Oh,
high
maybe you're
point-
going to show it in the next one.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm.
in a 3D it actually is a little bit more obvious. So this is a 3D image of the entire site with the garage. We felt this was the best angle to probably see the complexity of the site. And we've been, as I said, Cottage 30 has a lower level here that has a one-story kind of relationship with these cottages here. This is the new Cottage 28, the two-story that we talked about just earlier this afternoon. So that's a two-story building. 34A sitting on the ground is a two-story building. And then 31 here is one story at the front, two-story at the back. So it's kind of marching up the hill with the buildings are kind of going up with the grade. And 32, 33, and 34 sit pretty much where the core cottages used to sit on the site. They have a similar kind of array of retaining walls at the backside, and these buildings sit no higher than those buildings did.
And they are all at the same base level on top of the parking structure?
They vary. So the buildings sit no higher than the core cottages do as they're standing right now. And so we have a drive ramp coming in on this side right here, on the west side. And then on the east side we have a retaining wall right here, and we also have a required second exit for the parking garage. We went back to the city and back to our code specialist at Gensler, and we tried to see if there was ways to mitigate the second exit. Unfortunately, we've got more than 50% distance between the exit here and this exit. This exit would also require that we have extensive ramping coming up the side of this garage ramp and railings, and it would get wider. I think it would really bring more emphasis rather than de-emphasizing this area that looks into the property itself. What we've discussed with civil and with landscape is creating another planter at this corner to start to break down this edge here, so that we're just basically leaving enough space here to provide the exit.
Okay, the exit.
Pedestrian.
Pedestrian.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So maybe I'll move just briefly. Maybe I'll move to the garage plan and then come back.
However you want to do it.
So this is the garage plan. It's basically valet. All the parking garage is valet. We do provide ADA spots as well as van spots in both the garages. There's an ADA exit as well. This is the area of refuge here. That's our second exit. And we have some mechanical over here that's buried.
I have Casey where the elevator is, and I show them the fastest.
Sure. The elevator is located right here.
Come in the walkway.
So you can come in through here and get to the walkway. And the elevator is part of the Cottage 34B. There's actually this whole building is separate from the garage. So I'm going to start then with Cottage 30. Do we want to see the plans, or do we want to drop back to them if necessary?
Yeah, I think they'll ask
Yeah.
you.
Sure. So this is Cottage 30, and in the process of going through committee, we had a series of requests to investigate things. We had here on the south elevation, we had a column here that we were kind of all struggling with. It was replaced with a bracket, which I believe has a nicer relationship here on the west elevation. The balcony was resized to be more in scale with the elevation itself. The wall above this garden, which it's hard to see on the south elevation, but this is actually a garden wall, 8-foot garden wall here. So that was thickened to give it a little bit more meat over the top. Another concern that the committee had was the regularity of the windows and the displays of the windows. And what we did with the displays is we tried to make them more proportional so that their depth was like half of their width, and not really, and on larger windows going up to about 18 inches, which seemed to be, yeah, so on larger windows they got closer to 18 inches, which we felt brought it, a little closer into scale. And on this particular building, we try not to be totally consistent, but on this building we tended to use the splayed windows on the second floors and the non-splayed windows on the first floors. I admit that this side of this building is probably a bit regular. We have beds on both of these, and kind of with our discussions with interiors, that was about as much as we could push it. We feel that it's backing up to the garage podium, and I feel that it's a regularity I feel like I can live with. This elevation here, we addressed the concerns about the squareness of the windows. We also brought in this kind of herringbone pattern that appears under windows in other portions of the property. We also introduced windows that were of kind of squarish proportions or oversized proportions, that there is an exposed lintel in those locations. We also extended out the overhang over this back patio here, and I believe we switched the chimney caps to this kind of stacked V pattern. On the eaves, we're showing these kind of false vents. We do have details in here for vents that are actually in the tiles themselves.
Question.
No, first I want to ask the commission, do we want to go each building all the way through, or do we want to break it up building by building?
Madam Chair, I feel like we should break it up site and then building.
Okay.
So we've already gone past the site. I think we should go back to the site, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay, let's go back to the site then.
So I'll go back to the 3D images.
That's fine to start with, and I'll start out with.
But let me just ask
Sure.
questions about the site.
Oh.
Just a minute. I do have comments, and I would like to take public comment before we go into questions, if I can. First will be Mr. Martinson, and the next will be Kellum. And if I can ask you to be brief, I would appreciate it.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, Trevor Martinson, architect. I didn't wear my briefs today, but I'll try to be brief. My letter to you, I think, that the last meeting I thought was very important that we do, and especially what one of your council members mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, it's very important that we make sure that compatibility analysis up there has been done. And I don't believe that it has, and I had made some suggestions regarding the 3 stories above the garage, and the 2 stories above is a 3-story building. There is no getting away from it. And the only way that this applicant can resolve that issue in the RH zone is to get a variance. And that's the only way you can do this. You can't say that those buildings are separated by a couple of feet of soil. It just does not
Mr.
compute.
Martinson, this is not a land use review board. Can you confine your comments to aesthetics?
No, I think that this is actually part of your job. And I believe that Michael Self wanted to make sure that you did follow all the rules. And we do have an issue here. And it's a very important issue. And as far as the aesthetics go, I think they're going in the right direction. But you can't put a beautiful building on a zone that isn't zoned for it. And that's a big issue. So just wanted to reiterate that. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. DeForest?
That chair there, please.
What?
That chair there, please.
The hot seat.
My fish off beautiful plants. First, I would like to ask Mrs. Cole, I've forgotten what she said years ago, what in the 1920s was on this northwest corner, northeast corner, excuse me. It would be interesting to know, and was it just eucalyptus trees, or were there any structures that, I know about the structures that are, the recent structures that are there now, but I was wondering about the 1920s. I think the best treatment for the wall of the parking structure that has to be walled off would be a cut sandstone wall replicating the stone walls on the south side of the property on Lassoane and the rest of the Riviera. Also, I would like to see a screen of vertical trees. I know they can't be eucalyptus trees, but it would be nice if they were to sort of block this huge, this vertical, or tie into the verticality of this structure, which is above the El Encanto.
Thank you. Let's go to questions for the site, please.
There's a landscape plan
Oh.
associated with this. As long as we're looking at the site.
I think I was going to defer to the chair of the subcommittee, and he was requesting that there be questions about the site without the landscape, but
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it would be better to address some of the site issues before we get into the landscape, because the landscape, yes, it mitigates some of the site issues, but at the same time, I think we have to get those site issues out on the table.
Madam Chair?
yes.
I would like to address Mr. Martinson's concerns. I think that if we need, I think we need guidance, because if I'm looking at number one of the project compatibility analysis, and it does in fact become a 3-story building because of this garage underneath, then we need some sort of...
Well, I believe this question was answered before, and Ms. Kennedy can answer again. This
Please.
issue was resolved.
Yes, the issue regarding 2 and 3 stories has been brought to both the Planning Commission and the Council on numerous occasions, and has been addressed and satisfied. And when this project goes forward to the next level, that'll be confirmed as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Back to questions about the site, please. Peugeot.
Yeah. I have a difficulty seeing the approach, what the approach to the garage will look like. I mean, I kind of see it, I understand it. I know you have it all done in Revit, but I have a hard time visualizing what would be this elevation. Where is this elevation drawn? You're coming in, and what do you see? You see like the retaining walls dressed in sandstone, I believe, right?
Right.
And there's a paving which is like a concrete or sand. I mean, this paving is what?
Excuse me, Alex, the paving material for that driveway has not yet been determined.
Okay.
The driveway on the other entrance off Alvarado is brick, full brick.
Okay, and that driveway will go all the way to the retaining walls, right? There will not be a planter on each side or anything at this point? Or?
In this case, no.
Okay. And it goes from 0, these retaining walls goes from 0 to like 9 feet or so, something like that. And here it's like 2 arches, I think.
Correct.
We will carve out some vine pockets so we can get some vines to grow on those sidewalls as you go down.
And there is no, will it be a railing or this wall will be 42 inches above the, that kind of a thing?
What we're proposing is to, we've, in subcommittee, we actually started to address this height here was, maybe I should go to the next sheet over, because this is explains more what's going on here. So, if you're down at the back side of Cottage 30, there's basically a 13-foot wall here where there's no retaining wall. And what we've done is we've built the planting up in front of this corner to 8'3". So basically, what you're seeing here would only be 8'3", and then we would have to, do a planting berm. Or
What our intent for these sidewalls is that we would have a minimum 5-foot barrier planting between the top of the wall and the rest of the landscape, so that we don't have to have a railing on top of it.
On both sides?
On both sides, yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay. And then on this other side, here again you're going from, right there. Yeah, that's the new exit, right?
Right.
And then from 0 to...
We're going about 4 feet to about 10 feet here with barrier planting as well.
And you put a planter on that corner?
Yes. This
on the inside.
Yeah, and that would raise this up.
The distance.
Exactly.
The height. And that thing doesn't have doesn't have to have any, it's just pedestrian, right? It's just a walkway.
Correct. Well, it's actually the entrance to the quay on the east side on the first level of 34A. So this is an outdoor area for this unit, but it also functions as a secondary exit from the garage.
So it has a lot of possibilities.
Yes.
This obviously is not restricted by the use of,
correct.
By vehicle and dimension, but that one has, okay. And how do you do the same thing on the top as far to avoid the railing, like right here? The same, a 5-foot planting barrier. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions regarding the site?
This wall from the base of these steps up this column, what is that height?
That height's
roughly.
It's roughly about 15 feet. It is tall, but we're forced to have an accessible ramp to this through this door here. We have to be accessible to this door so we can get to the elevator, to get to the top, and also to get to the garage itself. So it's contributing to that. We will in the area over here build it up at roughly a 4-to-1 to allow for a lot of planting here. But there will be some height in this area here. That's also why we've gone to metal railing in this location, just to help alleviate that.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Drury.
Have we lost a fountain?
I've never modeled it.
Yeah, it's sort of a pain, I think.
It's not that hard.
Not on the schedule you're on.
Now we're there. And so that area that right now is blank, is going to be all paved, or do you have the opportunity to put plantings in this?
There's, why don't we...
I think you've shown it, right?
I think we should have a brief presentation.
I forgot. I think I've seen it, but I'm getting too old and my brain doesn't
Me
quite...
too.
We've seen the palette, so that it'll be interesting to see the arrangement.
I have to apologize. This is not the most recent landscape plan, but I don't know how to do AutoCAD, so I couldn't print the most recent one. This one still has this round tower, which is long gone, and it also has a set of stairs up here. Now this, of course, just goes flat into the garage. Oh, this is completely wrong.
Yeah.
There is now a round piece of turf here that the cart path ends on, so the carts can go back. As part of the 5-foot walkway system, this becomes 4 feet into the units and into the escape from the garage. The paving material on the, remember the podium has a minimum of 3 feet of dirt between the top of the parking slab and finished grade here. So we can get good-sized planters or good-sized planting on top of the garage. These darkened areas are full soil voids, so we can get big trees in there. The paving material for the walkways up here is going to be a flagstone, and the flagstone that we found on site is the old Tahiglis quarry, which is closed down. You can't get any more, but Eddie Langhorn from Pat Scott Masonry has some Santa Maria flagstone that looks really similar. It's white and chalky, and it doesn't look like the modern-day Cherokee Creek. So that is the intent. We also have raised planters where possible to get another 36 to 42 inches of soil.
Great.
The plant palette is what you've looked at, only it's more the what we have in the southeast corner where we have a little Spanish-style building, since that's the vocabulary.
Okay, so generally, a quick question: when you have these opportunities for trees, Katie, what are you thinking for?
Well, Arbutus marina would be a good one for the larger trees, carob trees, if we can get some big ones. We have a lot of accent trees, so where we don't have as high of a raised planter, we can get Alhinias, Cerces, I can't read it upside down, Chitalpa. Choricia would be another good one. Some of the Brugmansia, the angel trumpet, persimmons, figs, guavas, ginkgos.
Okay, thanks.
Any other landscape questions?
Should we go to comments for the site?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Let's go back to the overall aerial here. And, I have been working with the applicant and the rest of the subcommittee members, and we have been struggling with Mission Village with particular respect to the southwest corner here, where the garage comes out of the ground, and what that does to the character of the site, and how the mitigating measures are taken to reduce that. And what happens is it becomes a contrived solution and a contrived site, which is completely antithetical to what El Encanto, not completely antithetical, but somewhat antithetical to what El Encanto was and should be. I'm not concerned necessarily about the public view of this. I'm concerned about what it does to the historic site and what it does to the character and the romance of the site. So my conundrum is how do I approve myself, or how do I vote for this project when I don't agree with something that has already been decided on? You have your entitlements from the Planning Commission. You have your preliminary approval from the Historic Landmarks Commission. I don't know. I'm just letting the rest of the members know. Okay, you don't have the preliminary approval. You're right, from the Historic Landmarks Commission. But we've already sort of blessed this, and we can't force you to move backwards, as much as I would like to force you to do that. Study ways of reducing the footprint of the garage. Mechanical parking, digging it deeper may or may not be an option. I don't know. So from where I just wanted to let the rest of the commissioners know, the applicant know, that I'm coming from a position of this is unacceptable. This solution of having this semi-underground parking with 1- and 2-story buildings on top of it is completely antithetical to what I see the Encanto as being developed.
Thank you. Do I have any other comments regarding the site?
Well, I was just going to say that this is problematic. This elevation is absolutely huge when you look at that. And my comment would be, to plant it heavily, which I think you're going to do, but to try to soften it. But I think where you can break down the intense elevation with other organic looking stone walls with plant material is going to be advantageous. I'm not willing to dial this back and not approve it because we've seen this principle, but I think there's going to have to be a lot of work done by the structural engineer and the landscape architect to soften with both walls, some shorter walls to break down this elevation. This 15 feet right here, concerns me. This is really tall as you meet up to it, and there's got to. Seems like this is where I have one of the biggest problems. I love the fact you found deep wells for some of these smaller canopy trees that you're going to be using, but this issue right here is problematic in this whole edge. So, but there's going to have to be a lot of work in terms of softening that.
Thank you. Yes, Shay.
With Mr. Suding's comments, I get the feeling looking at this, and I know it's not going to look like this really, but that has a really artificial look to it, the way that, especially this cottage here, 31, is sitting right there on the brink of something. I just can't see it. It's raised up too high. Is there a way to make a second level in the parking garage so you can go down deeper?
Unfortunately, I've spoken to our engineers, and really we tried to push the garage down, and we've also tried to minimize the structure as much as possible. But what we have inside is basically about an 8'6" clear, and we need 8'4", in the areas where we're accessing the ADA spaces.
No, I can understand that, but this happened last meeting too. There was an awful lot of feedback in the room because I watched the rest of the meeting afterwards because I had to leave early. But so I hope this gets through all right. But this is a really grave concern of mine. I know we've discussed this, but when you first put that out there, I just sort of gasped. I just can't believe it.
Other comments regarding the site?
Yeah, I think we need to move forward. I mean, regardless of how we feel one way or the other. I mean, it's just, a previous board really looked at this. This is where we are. We need to kind of. I agree with the comments made that these are the more difficult elevations, especially the approach. I wonder. I measure it's 24 feet. You have a 24-foot driveway, right? Width. I wonder if you cannot put a 2-foot planting on each side, so that then you can grow something and start integrating that. It's also important to look at what that wall looks like, and maybe if you can draw it, maybe bring some drawings, maybe perspective drawings, and I think it will help you to bring some pencil drawings, right? Because sometimes the computers can give you this hard edge that may not be exactly, especially when you have to render sandstone, computer-wise, it just never works. I think this is very important. I think it has a curvature, right?
Yes.
I don't remember. I would like to see the rest of the side, because I think the way you come here, you don't see like this big hole disappearing.
Okay.
I think there's a curvature that really adds to it. The way these walls terminate, I'm not sure if they start level on the top and then they drop. Usually with stone walls, have, how does it go? They go flat, do they step up? Those details are important. I think they will help you.
Okay.
I think that perhaps here it might be, this is one case where it may have the exposed edge of the stairs that will drop 42 inches. That may help you. So you have this stone on one side, maybe that will drop. I like the way you are starting to do this kind of a thing. I'm not sure. I think it works. I'd like to see more about that. It seems like you have a nice a curved iron detail, and it doesn't run all over the place, but it's contained in pieces. Sometimes people put stones, pots or some termination for this column. Whatever there is precedent for this. Like the high school, the Santa Barbara High School, for instance, has on Figueroa has one little building there that has cute things. Nice stone details. I agree with the comments made, but I think we need to move this forward and try to figure out a way to lower these walls. I think this has a long ways to go. I don't think this is difficult at all, and I think you can do something really pretty here. If you, I would make more of a curved planter, so it follows. So the exposed retaining wall is not so high. Some of the best Santa Barbara walls have other batter, and they have this like on Mission Ridge, right? Like what do they call those? Mountain Drive. Mountain Drive. You've seen, right? I'm not sure if this has. It has all those. What do they call it? Buttresses. Right. And I don't know. There's some historic, traditional details that you can add to these walls to make them look more traditional. Those walls on Mountain Drive. They're huge, right?
Yeah.
They're 20-some feet high or something. And they're beautiful. If they were taller, they would be more beautiful. So there's something, I wouldn't be scared of trying something maybe more, more bold on those walls with the sandstone. We have a client that is willing to spend all of this money in sandstone. I expect to see something good to come out of that kind of budget. Those are my comments with respect to the site.
Can you imagine doing that wall without the reinforced concrete, how it would have to be? Is what Alex is getting at. The mattresses need to be more pronounced so that they look like they're real, not just...
Okay.
Just imagine you don't have the reinforced concrete to work with, you work with stacked stone. And see, it might be the solution.
And the stacked stone at the bottom needs to be larger, and it needs to be large, and then start getting a little bit smaller as it goes up. And I certainly didn't mean that we couldn't move forward with this. It's just that this is unfortunate.
Do I have any? Yes, Mr.
This is a question. Are we saying that we want these walls off of vertical? We want them slanted?
Yeah.
Bad. Thank you.
That's what we were.
In fact, I would go further and just reiterate on this corner. There's got to be a way to break down this height in terms of wall structure, or again using some of this great stone. So I would ask the applicant to explore a solution like that at that corner. That's the most contrived corner. Going.
Yeah. Am I allowed to speak right now, or?
Actually, we're in comments, so I'd rather hear all the comments if I could. Yeah, I think we trained. Are there any other comments?
I do have a couple. It seems to me if you had open handrail here to cut the height of the apparent wall height down 42 inches, you would continue it.
Yeah.
And there must be and here too. And just as Alex said, you'd have 42 inches less of height here if you had a handrail. I'm just wondering why that is solid when that height at that corner seems to be so critical to the subcommittee.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Sharp, we did look at that, and we looked at it both ways with the railing there, and it looked extremely commercial. I believe that was what our ruling was on that. It didn't look.
If I can, I don't remember 100%, but I think the point was that if you continued the railing all the way from here to here, that it then looked quite commercial. But I don't think we ever looked at it, and I think Don's point is put the open railing here and put the solid wall here as your wall diminishes.
Maybe
so I don't think
we need
we
to
looked at
revisit
that.
And I think that your comment about the railing there and seeing the tops of the stairs, that we did not explore that. So that that is Alex, Commissioner Pujo. That is a good comment. These are all good comments that we're getting from the rest of the commission, and we're appreciative.
Chair, it seems to me that the top of the mouth of the garage, that's where the solid wall should be. Not and not the and it seems like it's in the wrong place. Yeah.
Split these two.
Yeah, it seems to me like the that part should be very spectacular. Should be very maybe more, and that will hide the building behind, which is the concern that Ms. Boucher had, having the other building on top. I think if that was, and doesn't have to be 42 inches, maybe it's 4 or 5 feet, maybe something else. Doesn't have to be a fixed dimension that makes it, makes it look like a railing.
Maybe it has some scroll work or something too at the top. Maybe it has a bit of an arch so that it looks like a bridge going over. There's all kinds of.
Another quick comment I would make is, if you come into a high situation like this, you've got to try a creeping vine to soften what you're encountering, or maybe it's a fountain. I don't know.
I'm going to really briefly summarize the comments regarding the site. I think in general everyone is struggling with the concept that has already been approved, the idea of the underground garage, and as it erupts out of the topography. However, I think we all feel that we need to move forward and are suggesting ways to mitigate the problem. There is particular concern regarding the southwest, the southwest and the south walls as it follows the garage and includes the southeast wall as it travels along the pathway to the garage exit. Suggestions have been made regarding landscape solutions, planters, terracing walls, etc., to mitigate the height of the walls. Suggestions have been made regarding the use of open rail at the highest parts of the wall and the use of a solid wall over the garage openings. Is there anything else I've forgotten?
Just to be able to soften the hardscape, the verticals.
Use of, I think I would include that under the landscape mitigation of walls and hardscape.
Battering the walls too.
And suggested that you look to the walls on East Mountain Drive as an inspiration, the use of battering, and the height as a benefit as opposed to a deficit in terms of design. West Mountain Drive. I don't live here. Okay. Above. I don't drive there. Okay.
Okay, that's enough.
All right.
So should we go back to
30?
Building
30
yes.
for comments?
Yes. Let's go back to building 30.
Okay, everybody take a deep breath.
Okay. Were there, I think we need questions for building 30.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask this question: Are these still, about the balconies in this building? These would go about 3 feet out.
Mm-hmm. Correct. To the door swing.
It's sort of similar to condition that we encountered earlier today on buildings
Exactly.
27 and 28.
Right. Mm-hmm. You see these balconies have a little bit more detail. This is actual direct detail from the site itself.
And another question I have is, what is this material this sort of herringbone?
I'll show you a picture.
These pictures are going to be something that you're going to appreciate,
Okay.
and will inform you.
It's basically a V-groove.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a quirky little nice fill-in that they kind of used in a couple different places.
Mm-hmm.
Also, kind of unusual kind of header that's kind of flared back at the top.
Right, see.
Drain header.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's why.
One of the reasons.
So it doesn't rot out at the top.
Precisely.
Gotcha.
You get sheet metal at the top, but they never.
I see. Just puts a crisper edge right there. Yeah.
This is sort of headgear for a window.
Yes.
Catchers.
If you go back to the elevation, as long as we're talking about balconies, you may want to verify this, but my feeling is, and that's typical of all of the brackets that you have, that they go the other way. They come around this way instead of coming to where you get the ability to have the deflection.
And then do they come back
So
up
it's
this way?
reversed, yeah.
It's reversed from what
It's
that's
reversed
showing.
from this.
Let's see what you have. You know, we might actually have a
That's what
reverse.
made me think of it.
No?
See, that's the opposite of what I would structurally think would be.
Right.
But we have not had a chance to go around and look at. We have one outside the door here that is reversed to this, where you don't get a chance of having that deflection
Right.
before your point of contact at
Right.
support at the wall. But you might want to verify that.
Sure.
That's the only reason.
When I've done these balconies before, my structural engineer wouldn't give me any benefit for those brackets at all.
No, I.
Yeah, they're decorative then. Yeah.
But we.
But
Okay.
All right. Yes.
Under the,
I'm sorry.
Ooh.
what's that?
Oh, we were just
that-
talking.
oh,
It's that wooden.
Yeah.
It's that one wooden.
No, but
fill.
you couldn't
It's a
see it
wooden
from
fill.
over there.
Yeah.
And then
Alex, if you come over here, you'll get the benefit.
you'll
That
get the
screen doesn't show it well. 12.3.
V groove.
Nice, huh?
It's groovy.
Are there any other
Yeah,
questions?
I do. So you were struggling with a column here. What was the struggle? What was the issue you
Well,
encountered?
the struggle is it's very close. It's very close to the door,
Uh-huh.
and we also I don't think we had a precedent on site where we had this type of arch with a column directly under it. Columns tended to be kind of half-height columns sitting on top of walls, and so we played with different, making larger columns, and it really, I think, tended to make the elevation worse. And this was really probably more in keeping, yeah.
And it was more, I mean, the subcommittee particularly gave them direction on that. It did look very odd there,
Yeah.
Commissioner Adams, and I think this is a much more elegant solution.
So we're looking at it this way. What's another way we look at it?
Right here. So you're seeing the cutout right there. This is the bracket.
It needs
I
to,
see.
needs to feather out a little more. Tie back into the structure.
You mean like another bump down?
One
or-
more of these. Yeah.
Okay.
You have no gutters at all.
We addressed gutters in final on our previous projects. We can. We
help
hadn't
you.
looked at them yet.
That'll help your elevations.
Okay.
But it's the downspouts I'm concerned
Yes,
about,
yeah.
and lack of showing them and where they are.
Okay.
That's crucial because some really want to have leader boxes, others not. And
Right.
That's part of the jewelry of the building
Okay.
here.
That's a new catchphrase.
Are there any other questions? If there are no questions, can we have comments? Yes, Mr. Drury.
I personally am very pleased with this. The disappearance of the column on 30 South elevation. I think it's a good solution to that problem. I like the way it opens up that bottom story.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Suding.
I think all of these elevations have improved significantly. The only comment that I have is that the depth of the balconies, again, I think is slightly too much. I wouldn't say that they have to go back to the 28 because this is a different scale building. On that other building, 29, that we were looking at, that it was really problematic. But these do need to be scaled back, I feel, just a tad. But otherwise, I think the elevations are looking very nice.
I would agree with Commissioner Suding's comments about the balcony for sure. And then, again, to reiterate Commissioner Sharp's comment about another flare or way that pulls into the building. other than that, I really like your materials and your study of materials. So I think it's really, really great you did that. I love that photo essay. It shows character, and that's what we want on this site and with these buildings.
Madam Chair, I agree with the comments. I was really pleasantly surprised. I look at all the elevations, and they seem more refined than the ones we saw before.
Thank you.
I agree with the comment. I have a comment here on this bracket. It seems like it would make some sense to widen the bracket with that break.
Yeah, make it a line.
Yeah. Also, that line that you have here. It doesn't exist unless you kind of go, Another thing is to bring the pilaster down, like 6 inches.
Right, we've done that in other locations.
Yeah. So that kind of like, the security. Right. Okay, second comment, the light fixtures, they seem to be all in strange places. I'm not sure if it's just like that. And also the size. I'm not sure if this is fine and this is fine. But now this one starts looking, odd. If you look in plan, you wouldn't have it there. You probably would have it lower. You have it right in this corner here.
Yeah.
And some do look a little bit smaller. I'm not sure if that's your fixture and you're applying it, or if they do. Some of them could be a little bit bigger. It seems to me. And this would be like in the center of the door. I don't know. It just seems like they're all kind of like thrown in there without much regard for anything.
Madam Chair,
yes.
I agree with Alex that these light fixtures all have to be positioned and restudied, and they're very important. This level gate top, I think, is out of place. Here you have this. I really think you may want to explore a different shape at the top of that rather than just cutting it off on that exterior gate.
I think we were looking at examples that were on site.
Could be.
Yeah, and that's why we went with that.
Think about that, because it's those little things are very important.
I know I'm probably not supposed to comment right now, but we are struggling with trying to do really large fixtures and not making them ADA obstructions. So we have to try to be very, very clever how we place them.
I'm sure.
I'm going to summarize the comments.
I want to make one more comment. I think the subcommittee's done a great job on this, so thank you for putting in your time.
Thank you.
And the architect responding.
Thank you. Overall, the commissioners feel that the building has improved under the direction of the subcommittee and through the responsiveness of the architects. With regard to the cantilevered landing at the stair, the suggestion is that you look at widening the support as well as adding another layer underneath the base and to feather it back. Secondly, we are requesting you to take a look at the location and sizes that are appropriate of the light fixtures, keeping in mind that we are aware that you must observe ADA restrictions. And can you please look at reducing the depth of the balconies so that they are still functional, yet perhaps more proportionate? I'd like a motion.
And? I want to add to that. It's for the applicant to study the locations of the gutters and the downspouts.
Yes. Yes.
I'll make that motion.
How many buildings are there on this? 5?
Oh.
Site?
Yeah,
we
5.
can't have 6 different motions for one item on the agenda. So,
Okay.
Next
so
building.
we study that.
Next building.
With some romance.
Or character.
Whimsy.
Sorry. Okay.
31A.
Okay, this is Cottage 31. This is the one that's it's on the corner of the parking structure. And I know in the last meeting we had in the subcommittee, they were confused, or not confused, but they were they were, you know, as far as the entries and which ones were entries to the cottages and which were not. Basically, the south elevation faces into the railing into the private courtyards. So this elevation faces south, and is really not a direct access or has passed to those doors. So that's kind of how these two become the most prominent, is because they're the only ones that have paths leading to them. So since you've seen it last, I lost the line, I'm sorry. Since you've seen it last, we had some head heights that had slipped at some point. We introduced railing detail we've used elsewhere in the project to help bring this elevation up a little bit. And we've also introduced lintels that capture door and windows, which is a detail we've seen happening elsewhere in the site, which I think helps to give a little mass to this part of the project. There was in general, there was a feeling that the balcony was did not fit in with the building itself. We've basically spread that out. We've placed it a little different on the building, and I feel that starts to balance out this elevation.
Also studied the proportions of all the displays, like on 27, 28, below the windows.
Are there any questions on Building 31?
Yeah. This material up here is what, iron?
Yes.
So dark iron or whatever you're choosing up here. Okay. And this balcony, again, this is, my guess is at quarter scale, at least, this looks like 38 inches, but I don't know, I mean 638. So this really pops out in a prominent way.
Okay. Is that a question?
I just wanted them, it's the
Way?
same condition.
Just say, how deep is that?
How deep is that?
There you go.
It's, I believe it's about 1 inch.
I do have a question.
Good.
Have we looked at Lenny sketches that these were patterned after?
They've
Or
changed so
approved?
much.
Actually, in Cottage 30 and 31, the Lenny sketches on those two particular cottages were less developed compared to some of his other buildings. We've looked really much more closely at 32 and 33 to emulate his drawings, and 34 as well. There was a redistribution of rooms. So we had 2 keys in 30.
I'm mostly concerned about the fact that, to me, the problem with this is that the constant plate height at the upper level. You need to break this up, and I'm sure that the Lenny drawings would have lowered some, raised some, in order to get some variation. This tends to be very boring because of it, and it's so simple to take and lower one element and break that constant eave height that you've got in every one of these buildings, I assume, or at least so far that we've seen. And it's an easy trick to try and humanize a particular area, and it changes everything for almost no money.
Can I just ask, are we at the lowest? So we would basically be raising a plate height in order to change a...
I think we have enough. I think we could play with the roof as we've done previously and shed
so you
areas.
can lower?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're not maxed out at this point.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
On the lower windows, the first floor windows, you have some splays, and on some of the uppers you do and you don't. Is there some? Is that exist on site? Is that something that you made a conscious decision about, or how did that transpire?
Well, there was more of a conscious effort in in 30 to put the splayed at the second floor and non-splayed on the first floor.
Does it exist? Does the mix exist in the extant buildings?
There is a mixture, and there are windows like on 29 that was coming about. 29 had 4 different types of windows, and it does happen.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask you to confirm that I have asked you and you have confirmed to me that what looks like single casement windows are sometimes double casement windows?
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. On the 31 west of the south elevations, that first floor chimney, is that a working fireplace?
Yes, it is. It's a gas fireplace.
It's a gas fireplace,
Yes.
so there's not going to be smoke.
No.
Okay, because that would be
unless somebody in the unit's doing something.
Okay, thank you.
Another question. Maybe it's the angle, but this is just a square. This shape, this form is pretty much just that wide. It just looks.
And that thin.
Okay.
Unless I'm mistaken, none of the recessed windows are shown on the plan that way. Is that correct?
You can see it actually.
So they're recessed a couple inches?
Yes.
For that much away.
I thought they were deeper than that, according to a comment that was made earlier. I
think we made a comment that if we went to a 2x8 wall, I think that was discussion earlier. I'm thinking of.
So this recess is a couple inches.
Thinking of earlier meeting. I'm sorry.
To 0. And all the walls are 2x6.
Yeah. I believe we have a detail up here in the back.
No.
Look at the recess on this.
There's a recess.
Yes. And that.
There's a recess.
Yeah. Of course, there's nothing there, but.
But there's almost
There's
like
some others.
a radius recess.
Without recesses.
You get a lot of mileage out of varying the recess and having more than a couple inches.
If I may.
In some windows, you can. It depends where it is.
Right.
What size the window is?
It depends on a lot of things. Whether it faces south and west or north, where you get some benefit from the shadow. But that's crucial. I mean, this door, if that was on the surface, wouldn't have anywhere near the romance.
No.
Seriously, that this does. And recessing some of these more than a couple inches is really important.
Okay. Well,
and that's true of all the buildings here.
Right.
There's a column detail.
Where? Oh, it's a Tuscan.
Hey.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a detail, one that we actually took out.
Yeah, that needs to go away.
Oh.
You got so.
Yeah.
Thought we found it.
We thought we found it, by George.
Don, this is our detail for the display
Right.
window.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility of some thicker walls someplace?
We can look into it. Looks like we're.
Every once in a while.
Sure.
Are we in comments?
Sorry. Oh, that was a question.
Hey.
Oh.
That was a question. Is there a possibility? All right. Are we done with questions?
I am.
All right. Shall we move to comments now?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Comment that I would make is I appreciate all the attention you've spent on this door, but I think there's too many things going on. This brow that you have over here, the placement and the number of lights, and then we have this detail happening on the parapet there. I think that needs to be simplified. What I'm seeing here is a very important entrance for a building that really wants to be a little bit more diminutive and downplayed. You just step back and you look at that, and that's like Well, to me, it looks like a country club entrance almost, and I'm drawing that from the Montecito Country Club. So I think simplify that entry elevation on the north, the entry element on the north elevation. I appreciate it, but it's a little over the...
Okay, my comment is to integrate the gutters and downspouts as we've seen before, and I don't want to. Don Sharp gives me all the good ideas, but vary the roof lines
and maybe even roof slope, as they've done on those others. Sorry.
And Commissioner Suding, this does look like a country club entry, and there's two lights symmetrical. It just looks so trite. Maybe if there was only one lantern used, that could help. Just a thought.
Thank you. Other comments?
Madam Chair, gutters and downspouts, a 12-inch awning total, I don't think is going to cut it on any of these exterior elevations, and that's what they appear to be, maybe 11 inches, but if you're going to have an awning, you got to have an awning. And I would pay particular attention to having them, as you probably have in the south and west. And I'm not so sure the east really needs one, but that's up to you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes. I think this building needs a little bit of help because it has a lot of different details. It just seems like usually when you do one cottage, it's just one detail. You have one window detail. Maybe you have two, one for a very special window, and then you have the standard. So here you have the sills are different, and also some windows have the header detail, the wood header, some don't. Then it was mentioned the header over the door that is odd. I'm not sure where it comes from. Maybe this. I think it have to be. They have to figure out which is the window detail for this building and use that. I think it's too many variations and they're not practical. The comment with the awning is the awning has to cover the balcony. The balcony extends 30 inches, then the awning extends maybe 30, maybe more, because that's the purpose of the awning, to protect. Also, the width of the awning has to be the same as the width of the balcony. I mean, all of these things are together. They are not just trite elements that one just kind of puts in. They have a purpose. The railing on top of that door on the north elevation is intriguing, but it just seems like not sure what it's doing there. What else? If you have, I imagine it's a clay pieces, right? I think if you tie that with something else in the building, maybe the chimney cap. Yeah, I understand, but you wouldn't just put it just one little place and almost like it doesn't appear anyplace else. It seems a little bit that's what I see with the details in this particular building, that they are all details, a whole bunch of them, and they don't seem to make a lot of sense, to me anyway. Same comment with the lights as in the previous one. The building is simple enough, so I think in terms of mass bulk and scale, I think it should work. It shouldn't be a difficult thing to clean up. It's just a matter of the details.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would concur with the previous comments. I would say that for instance, that detail on above this country club door, if it was not there, that's just one detail less, and it's at this point one detail too many. Did I say something humorous? I hope not. Oh, thank you. But if that was simply a wall that went straight across, that would really simplify that whole elevation. Seems to me. Thank you.
Chimney termination is too large. If those are gas fireplaces, it might be a way to make. Like right now, it looks like they're like 4 or 5 feet or so, 4.5. I mean, they're huge. I mean, technically, there's a way to make it a lot smaller, I think.
And just to add to that, I think this balcony just has too much depth. This needs to be brought in for proportion reasons.
Madam Chair, may I add to my comment?
No.
Well, I'm going to. I would say that the south elevation is simple, except for Commissioner Sharp's objections to the monotone of the roof. I think that that's a successful elevation. And I think, in general, this is well on its way. It just needs a little bit of, dare I say it, I won't say it.
Investigation?
Romance.
Okay. I'm going to summarize these comments, if I may, and I'm starting to lose it, so. Add what I don't remember. In general, the mass, bulk, and scale of the building is working well. There is a suggestion that in order to add character to the building, that you vary the roof plate heights and the slopes. And this is sort of a general comment that can be applied. In terms of integration of details, we're looking at the north elevation in particular. The suggestion is to use fewer, more consistent details applied in a functional and logical way. Therefore, when you use the awnings, apply them in a way that shows they are functional, what they are covering in depth as well as in width. Again, the general comment regarding the gutters and downspouts and the light fixtures. Please note the location and size when you're looking at them again. There's a comment regarding the chimney termination being too large. I think I got it.
Gutters.
I forgot gutters and downspouts.
No, you missed it.
Oh, I did, yes. Okay.
Just testing you.
Did you mention
Window recesses?
Yes.
Did you mention?
And would you please
Window and door
explore adding thicker walls in places for window and door recesses where it is important?
Yes.
Apply that.
Well, all these pretty much are.
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Did you make a comment that something was too large?
The chimney termination.
Too wide? Too large?
Too large is fine.
All right, building 32.
Okay. So we're in building 32, and there was from the last time that the subcommittee saw it, there was a request that the stucco over this area come all the way up to the edge of the tile. Here's a instance where we're starting to shed things to try to break this horizontality. We played a little bit more in 32.
Look at that.
Yes.
Ooh.
So, and it does help. We're also exposing more of the framework or the roof framing in locations, so it doesn't have the same kind of detail all the way around. Again, we see the kind of the fill pattern in that location. There was a comment. Right now we're showing an exhaust. It exits the top of the building, and we gave that a little bit more love and a little bit more. Now I started to throw it in. I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. But we've introduced awnings on the west and south sides where they seemed appropriate, and also we introduced shutters that also show on site. Thank you.
Speaking of shutters.
So this is the shutter elevation. Since you looked at it last week, we previously only had one of these posts coming through here. We came back with 3, which I think helped to kind of balance this elevation. Also, what's happening is we've got the exhaust running at grade, and it comes up through the planter and back into the building. Yes. So that we might have to have some kind of tray that drops in, that maybe only has succulents or something to provide access. But
that's small.
It's like very small right
Short guys right over there.
And we did splay and pardon my little patchwork there. We splayed the stairs.
Yeah, good.
But which definitely is a more generous kind of entry here.
More welcome.
Yeah. Should we go back to the first elevation for comment?
Questions for building 32, please. Questions for 32. No questions? We'll go to comments for building 32, please.
Gutters and downspouts.
Okay. Madam Chair?
Yes.
On the, what did you call it? It wasn't the splay, but the curvature or the stairs. I think it definitely helps, but it feels a little awkward. And I think what's happening is that's a true radius that you're using there, and oftentimes they weren't necessarily a true radius. It does definitely need a terminus there. And maybe that's enough to help, but it's not romantic enough. But in any case,
what needs to be shown is that we have another adjacent stair here.
Yeah.
So probably, I'm not sure if we can barrel it there, but we will look at it.
But if you can't, then this just needs a little bit of attention there, because it's just too plain, in my opinion.
Madam Chair, obviously a lot of the same comments apply, and somehow should be recorded as such, but doors like this need to be recessed, which is very important. This wall needs something in the way of a window to sort of give something to it. These are too narrow. They should be another 4 or 5 inches wider. They're just too spindly. I'm not so sure the shutters add much, especially on a north elevation. These two guys can be varied. They shouldn't be the same. No, little details like that are it's really hard. Roof height can vary a little. Roof slope.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have are we in comments or questions?
Comments.
Oh, gosh. Then my comment would be that I hope that the overhang of the roof on the 32 South does cast sufficient shade to actually make that porch usable in the wintertime. That's a question and a comment, deftly concealed. So, I guess that's my comment.
I think we previously had an additional awning there, but it seems I think
too much.
It would be redundant with the door.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think this building needs a lot of help. I mean, it's big. It has 4 keys. It's one of the big buildings. It has some of the problems of the other one. A lot of different elements used. Some headers, some windows have one detail, some windows have another detail. It has the issue of the relationship of the awnings to the openings and all that. But beyond that, it really needs some more architecture. I don't think it's a matter of details. I think this one needs something more major. For one thing, I think everybody will agree that steel is used traditionally in small amounts. Usually when you have a balcony, it's a small balcony made out of steel. If it's a steel, if it's a big balcony, then it's something else. It's a Monterey balcony, or it's a stone, or a cantilever masonry balcony, that type of thing. And you have some very large balconies here that I don't think they work. I think they probably should be expressed in some other way. And if they're facing the south like that, maybe if you go with a Monterey style and you add timber, this building needs something. It's just a box with a whole bunch of different tricks that not all of them are working. Let me point to something here. Excuse me. Yeah. I think in a case like this, for instance, this is it's an odd situation. It's an odd connection. I think, like I said, I think the use of steel here that doesn't quite work. But you will have a balcony that is 6 inches away from the wall, because the easiest thing will be to connect it to the wall. And the same, especially on this side. Here the balcony is proud. But all of this is kind of one, usually the wall will go up and we have some kind of a roof that relates to that wall. I would just say that this building in particular needs a lot of help. And it also needs an expression, something that makes it look different from other buildings, especially because it's bigger, it's larger, and it should have more architecture. And I'm not here to design it. I'm just saying that it really deserves to be better.
Madam Chair, one more quick comment. Every balcony is identical. Some should be plaster, integrated into the structure to look like they're meant to be that way, not just plopped on the outside as every building seems to be. And these are too large. They're not realistic. They're more like an apartment would be, with a door and a balcony out there. It just... And I know it's difficult to sit here whatever time it is and try and say the same thing over and over again. And we're dealing with a very, very important style of architecture that takes years to be in Santa Barbara and really appreciate and absorb and so forth. And so we're sitting here trying to throw stuff at it, and it's difficult for the architects. There's no question about it.
Okay. I want to make. I think too many pieces of wide building. I think this roof variation in terms of height not lining up is key. It's already very wide. We need to see gutters and downspouts, so that could help. I also feel like there's too many shutters. It's feeling like a little contrived on so many shutters, especially
that one.
This elevation, north elevation. And I agree with the point. Maybe there should be on the west and south for reasons of functionality if you want to use shutters. But I think too many shutters. I don't think they're not working for me on the north elevation. And I would say maybe if you used, again, one light instead of two, it might help this a little bit here. Give it more character. I couldn't agree more about, I think that's such a good comment about the balconies. They need to not be all the same solution, because it's looking like I think that was a good comment. Should I start over? Okay. Anyway, I agree with most of the comments made. Too many shutters on the north, and that's it.
I think what it is that there seems like it's like a box, like a building that you start from the inside. You have your rooms, and then you start throwing stuff that doesn't quite make a lot of sense. Some places get shutters, some get some kind of balcony, but it's almost like a decorated shed, like this. And I think the shed itself has to have its own shape. I think it needs. That's what I was trying to say. I don't think it's a matter of details on this building. I mean, I think here this one needs some rework, of the general shape. You need some inspiration. I think in others you have some sketches and you follow the sketches and you did pretty well. Here I think Mr. Sharp mentioned the whole roof going along. It looks, we need to do a little bit better with this building. But I would leave it at that, not to work so much on the details, because otherwise the applicant will come back with those details, and this one is not there yet.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
as it appears we're going to be kind of slogging through these for a while, would it possibly be a good idea maybe that they can take and absorb the comments that you've made, which seem to be common throughout the, common comments throughout the number of buildings, and maybe rework the buildings and then come back, or
I like that idea.
would you like to keep slogging away? And it seems like the
I don't
comments
think
are
we're going
similar
to be
to each
getting.
building.
I'm just going to take the tenor of the commission as saying I don't think you're going to be getting preliminary approval just from the comments. I'm just going to assume that, and I know the applicant team is not going to be happy with that concept, but I'm just going to intuit what's going to happen here. There are general comments, and just as with the subcommittee, we're repeating them, and I think, unfortunately, the subcommittee did not represent the whole diversity of opinions, and that's our fault and not yours. I will say that in relation to this building, though I understand and agree with some of the comments, I personally felt that for once we were reaching a very, and maybe it's the wrong site for this, a rather sedate and calm building. And sometimes I look forward to that. But I would agree that the size of the building perhaps mandates against that attempt on this building. I'm going to summarize the comments on this building, and I'm first going to summarize the general comments, and please tell me if I have not got them all. First, please apply gutters and downspouts, and I think they will help your elevations, and they will also help us to understand where you intend to run your water. Recess your doors and windows. In particular, apply the recesses in a aesthetic and logical manner. With the light fixtures, please reinvestigate the location, number, and size in terms of appropriateness to where they are. With the roof height and slope, please vary your plate line and your slope where it makes sense to do so in order to add some variety to your second stories and particularly your second stories. With details such as the awnings and the balconies, please apply these in a proportionate manner. The balconies, when they are as large as they are on the south elevation of Building 32, perhaps should not be metal balconies, but you might explore the Monterey balcony, which is more appropriate to the size of this balcony. In terms of awnings, they should be proportionate to what they are sheltering, both in depth and in width. The application of details should be more pertinent to each building. That is, they should be integrated within the character that you wish to display in each building. It should not be sprinkled indiscriminately throughout. On this particular building, on Building 32, we'd like you to look at the curve of the display opening at the stairs, and if you can apply a terminus. If you cannot because of an adjacent stair or building, we can understand that. There have been various comments regarding the north elevation needing a window at the upper floor or something. The columns at the upper landing at the stair need to be larger.
Shutters?
The shutters should be looked at in terms of amount and application. Anything else? I said that. That's the first thing I said.
Yeah, you did.
I think you got it.
So, is this the end of this group? 32? No. There are more. Okay, so there's the question.
There's how many more?
3 more buildings.
I thought there's only one more. No.
2 more buildings. All right. I'm leaving at 6. We can get through one more.
There'd be a benefit to
going through them quickly. I think the architects understand
Yeah.
the overall theme of what you're looking for, and that is
I agree. I think
that's
we can
details.
not blaze through it, but I think we can get through it efficiently.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do.
Thanks. What building is this?
Building 33.
Same thing about here about the. I mean, this is a typical, perfectly ready-made Monterey balcony. Break the pitch here, right here, and go like that. You go with your double or triple things exactly where you have them. Much more appropriate than that.
And you want beams out here under each of those columns. Big wood beams, not the metal. Make it a Monterey. Make it a wood handrail. Expose the beam as you have, and make it gutsy.
Here, I don't have a roof plan. I was looking for it, but it seems like it's a good idea to project the roof. But when you get to the side, like you show in the other, it's an odd condition. Like this thing.
There was a question about that.
Yeah, I asked it. I said, "What? How the heck are you doing that?"
And then we looked at it, and I believe we
You did solve it? I could not understand how you did that.
Oh, we looked at it in 3D.
So this one with the two double or triple column, the beams under it looks just great. The same question like this: how come this window is different from that window? They're all very thin walls, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to have these two conditions in the same building.
Well, this balcony here got shortened. It was pushed back and shortened, and I think that the windows used to be all captured underneath this, behind these, between these pilasters, and I think that probably in shortening this balcony, that this window became more.
This window seems odd, seems like very low. I know there's a bathtub behind, but it still should work. This type of thing, these columns, if they are supposed to be masonry, pretend to be masonry anyway, they gotta be a little bit bigger. This recess seems to not to have much of a reason of being. This relationship here, I mean, if you're going to come out, then if you're going to come out like in the Paseo, they come out, they really go big and come out. If not, they go flash.
I mean, this is taken from an example that's on site, so we were respecting the size and the expression.
Can I just ask, are we just blasting through, because I'm not taking notes at this point. I mean, there are just way too many comments per building, so I'm hoping that the architects are taking notes on this, and I'm not going to do this.
These are too narrow. The relationship,
same comments.
The relationship here. Usually, we've seen this is done quite a bit. I think, in general, these are narrower, right?
Yes,
like
they should be narrower and grouped together.
Almost like a square in plan.
Maybe it should be grouped and smaller in between.
What else do we have? This, if you're creating some symmetry, then I'm not sure why it's not symmetric. I mean, if you're putting one opening,
it has to do.
Handicap is. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are reasons. I'm sure they did it for some reason. What I'm saying is, well, it doesn't work. So we gotta do. And I'm going fast, not because I don't want to be rude. I'm just going to get through, pass the message, and hopefully the subcommittee should be able to work these details. All right.
This thing, really, there's a beam here that could hang out and cantilever out and have more meaning. Yeah. Meaning for being.
And again, we have this roof line thing.
Well, I think sometimes it's a long building, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a very long building.
Maybe you have some places you cannot do that. You cannot break it. Some places you can't.
You need some 4 and 12, some 3 and 12. This is all 3 and 12.
Well, the issue we're also running into, and it's not like I've applied 3 and 12 just because I wanted to. The height is an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, when I make a determination to go 4 and 12, I really have to look at the inside. So
the inside or the outside?
The inside, to make sure that I have the head height.
Well,
but
because he has to drop this plate.
Okay. Just to, I know it's impossible to do it this way, but just to come up and have a little of that pop up there, and I know it's more involved than that, but that's really important.
Couldn't the building step like slightly, just ever so slightly, to break up so they don't have all that flat base?
Now that creates a lot of
ADA problems. Yeah, we got
problems
ADA
you don't
problems.
want to get into.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Next.
So these are the 34, which is 1/2 on and 1/2 off the podium. So this is 34A. This is the one that's on the podium, and we've gone through. We kind of applied the stucco balcony that exists inside, as you can see here as well. Again, we've applied lintels on the windows that seem appropriate for the size of that.
Questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Would these, all these iron rail porches just be better, the porch would be better served being made out of wood and Monterey porches?
Different.
I think if they are small, they would work well in iron. If you break that one
This size is good as well.
two and you have one for each, that would work. Yeah, something like that. That could work,
Or even if that one were
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and it could work. And if you center the porch over the door, and the whole thing is all centered, and you get some symmetry, it will also work nicer too. This is again. I would look at the consistency in detailing. Like, for instance, on the south elevation, if one window has an awning and then the door next to it doesn't have an awning, then you kind of wonder, well, why is that? Like, what was the reason why did I wanted to buy an awning but not two? I mean, those kind of inconsistency details that drive me crazy. It's the same with the header on maybe there's one small cottage that has all of these headers, and that maybe works well for that one because it was built at a certain time and that's what the header they use. But when you have it in one and not it's odd. It doesn't make sense.
This is very odd.
I think it's the bracket to come out of it. It's like the bracket detail coming the other way if we see for
Either you come up and then do something, or I don't know, but we studied that.
It's the shape.
It's
suggesting
very odd.
it needs to go straight and then be received by bracket at the end. That would be
So there are many variations.
Assuming that is like that, you would maybe do this, or something to tie this, rather than just having that bam. But
step.
radiusing handrails like that into the structure helps a great deal.
I got to say that. I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at that. I don't see it anywhere. This detail, if you're going to use it, may need to be integrated in other places rather than just making one great appearance, unless there was some direction.
There was some direction from me.
Well, these two are essentially the same shape, and they're totally different.
Well, this one's an opening. I mean, that one.
That's a stair landing.
Oh, it's a stair. Okay, I didn't understand. I'm sorry.
It's not really into a unit.
I'm sorry. And what is this structure trying to tell us?
Well, this structure is the elevator tower, and it is actually is deriving some of the shape from an existing building.
Yeah. It's right there. Yeah. Number 6.
It's a very large fireplace. but we felt we needed to have venting for the elevator, and we needed to kind of give it some kind of shape that made sense with what needed to go on.
Let's see the elevator.
Interesting, you get to use your wood and your metal there.
Yeah. Let's see the elevation. Okay. That's the elevator. I don't know. I don't know. To me, simpler would be better on that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, this is being shown in the background. This is not part of this building
part
here.
of that building.
So it may be worth looking at really more in the building than it's perceived on.
Okay. There's some distance there. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would say, is this a question or comment?
Either.
And then
At
this point, it doesn't matter.
It's happy hour.
I think all these doors could. I think they would benefit from being recessed. I think that extra shadow effect and that lovely. It's just it's part of that whole language, and I think it would be very useful here.
Okay, next.
This is 34. We're looking at 34 now.
Yeah, we're now actually on 34B because I jumped to one to show the stair tower or the elevator tower.
Looking at this elevation, it seems like I don't know. It seems like the space is tight, but maybe this is getting too tight here. I'm not sure what the consideration is. Why that's so? There's nothing there. I mean, not very much.
Well,
stuck up there.
The shape of these doors, we've done it so that basically they, at a certain point when that starts to curve in, a certain number of inches, you have to be at a certain height. So, kind of when we make an arch top door, it has to be a little taller to be ADA than a typical door.
I have a question, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Just in terms of process, bigger picture.
Yeah.
When you're ready.
Are there further comments regarding 34B?
On that elevation east, is that possible to get some symmetry there? Yeah, right there. Yeah. Seems like, when you have this kind of a thing where you have the door center, the light is centered on the door, and then this, it might work, might not, might make it odd, but it just seems like it's a little bit. I think it would benefit if you can, rationalize this.
Yeah,
more like you've done in some other place. Like this seems to be well balanced.
I think we have a larger balcony on here, which probably made this less obvious.
Madam Chair? Could I also make a comment on the proliferation of the wrought iron lamps? I mean, I think it's a lovely idea, but they need to be legitimate. I mean, they need to be in places where they actually do what lamps are supposed to do.
You must have them outside of every exterior door.
Yeah, and sometimes you could pair them up on a big entrance to a room, but I think they need to be coherent.
Are there further comments for the applicants regarding 34B? If not, we'll...
We can comment as before on the columns holding the...
What was that comment?
The columns holding the...
Heftier.
Yeah, those, yeah.
Beefier.
Wider.
Yeah, they have to be
and the corbels
beefier,
below.
Yeah.
For their radius.
Yeah. And they need a beam. Here, I see, it's not drawn on the side. Yeah, it's just drawn a little bit differently. Also, is there a mention on the way the corbels reach the ground, or have you talked about that already?
No, why don't you come over here and point?
This is a strange thing. It's close, but it's not exactly like this. The Paseo has it. If you go to the Paseo,
lots of examples.
Yeah, it's not exactly like this, but it's not that far off. Go to the old Paseo, and there's a section called the Street in Spain. Well, this is where it's that, and
that's what it
and
is.
it's not that. This is only maybe
Yeah, I think we talked about that because the wall is recessed, and that's why you just
Right.
can't pull it out as far as you have.
And we did add a plaster, and it's actually it should have read differently. I mean, this should be stippled.
Oh,
and
so
that's
they,
gone.
but you need
Right.
one in each then.
Right.
I mean, I think. I don't know.
We looked at it, but it was going to reduce the usability of that area. Yeah.
I see how that works. Oh, so that line doesn't exist.
No,
okay.
this
Oh,
line
okay.
does exist.
Oh, it does?
We were requested to move this in.
Oh, because the model on the site shows it that way. As it turns the corner, it pulls in.
we can justify it to the outside. It's
You see, it would be, in general, if you have these breaks of a few inches, if you get rid of them,
You know, it's a weird little detail. Let me find that guy again. Here, take a look. I think you're pulled in from the wall.
yeah.
It is, because what they do is they turn the corner, and this thing pulls out on the outside. So it's a very odd little detail. But you know.
This window in this shape is very nice. That's a good, very nice proportion. And
As is, I think, this window down here.
I agree.
Yeah.
This is beautiful.
just get a bunch of books on Santa Barbara architecture and
Put it on your pillow.
your photographs are really nice
Aren't they?
and say a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just want you to use those words.
Okay.
Keep drawing off of those, but
Madam Chair? I don't know if this is out of order, but 2 weeks ago there was a presentation for La Entrada by Mark Shields. It was before you guys came in, that 2 weeks ago hearing. And they'd be worth looking at. The line drawings of the Mason Street elevations, the hotel itself down on State and Mason would be worth looking at. There's public record, I understand. They can just go and have these things pull for them, but I think it would be instructive. So it's La Entrada drawings by Mark Shields. Yes, but there's a sense of space and detail that I thought was really, really lovely.
If we're done with comments regarding the architecture of the buildings, I would like to ask Ms. Allen to ask about her process questions. You giving this to
Yeah,
me?
it seems a little ridiculous
Take
after
it
No.
2 hours of review for this corner. Oh, maybe I'm overestimating. But I think what would help us, and of course we want to help you, we want to keep things moving, move through the process, but an understanding that clearly we understand the thematic comments that the Commission wants to see relative to architectural detail. I think Casey and Steve and the group at Gensler understand what you're looking for. We'll continue to refine those architectural details and be back here either at a subcommittee level or whatever works best. But I need to gain a better understanding of an expectation from the Commission in order to obtain preliminary. And we're all being very pressured in terms of moving along and obtaining preliminary. We have, and staff doesn't want me to talk about this, but there is a possibility of an appeal. And when an appeal is filed, we cannot come back and continue to work with you on architectural detailing. So there's a lot of pressure, like I said, and interest to understand what's needed for preliminary. Is it more of a mass bulk at scale? Can we get preliminary and continue to work through architectural details, roofline variations? That's my long, drawn-out question.
I think when the number of comments and the number of I'm not talking about placement of windows or things like that, but I'm talking about roof lines and nothing. When the number of those comments sort of drop down to 4 or 5, that's when you're ready for preliminary.
And I feel like we have a manageable range of thematic comments from the Commission in terms of varying the roof ridge lines, showing gutters and downspouts, We had a team meeting this morning where we were looking at opportunities to increase recesses for windows indoors. So I'm putting the question back out there. I understand.
Are you saying what will it take to get preliminary approval, and how fast can you get it in
Not
terms
so
of
much
with
how
a
fast,
subcommittee or?
She's just wondering what it would take.
I'm asking for preliminary again, even at this hearing.
You're asking for preliminary here. I would guess that you cannot get it because there's too much. We're asking for roof variation, plate variation. We're asking for wholesale changes to some buildings.
Madam Chair, sorry, pardon me for interrupting. The other thing you have to understand is that once we give preliminary approval, that's really our benchmark. We cannot go higher or really lower from that. And so we as a group have to feel comfortable that the comments that we're making reach that benchmark. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Yeah, I mean,
it's for the benefit of all of us.
because once we make that preliminary finding and preliminary approval, we cannot go back from there, really.
But we would still be working through
and that's fine, but there are just too many comments that haven't reached that benchmark yet.
Right, and so we were surprised when you wanted to go for preliminary for Mission Village. I mean, we were. So you took a risk, and now you know that we were off the mark, but not too far off the mark in terms of our feelings about Mission Village.
Can I just say that I think that the architects have made a really good effort, and they've been listening, very patient, and it's really going in a good direction. I just have to say that this is going in a really good direction. This is a good working process. We can't guarantee preliminary, but it's definitely going in a good direction.
Yes.
I would like Commissioner Sharp to join this committee.
That would be great.
I think because the need is not in landscaping, really. I mean, the landscaping will be addressed later on. But I think this is architectural input that needs to be received. At this
hire me?
No, they are going to add people. But I think that is.
It would help the applicants, I think.
I think
it would
we
give
need,
a different between Craig and me. And Craig has a different outlook and.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Whatever I can do
think
to
you will benefit
get
from
preliminary
this old
approval
pencil
as fast
going
as
nuts
possible. When do you meet?
Tomorrow.
7 o'clock tonight?
We have been meeting on alternate Wednesdays from the HLC meetings because otherwise it takes forever. Like from
tomorrow the entradas are going to.
Yes.
Oops.
Meet till the 30th, I don't think.
I think so.
No. Yes.
Is that right? Mission Creek?
When is our next projected subcommittee meeting for this, for Mr. Sharp's planning purposes?
I think we were talking about a subcommittee for the union
30th.
portion. Also,
this is more of a critical path, though. Right. We'd be ready next Wednesday if you're available.
I can meet next Wednesday. Yeah. I want to say that I lived in Santa Barbara 10 to 15 years before I got it.
Yeah, this is not
practicing
a reflection on you.
designing Spanish buildings all the time, and it's very, the light comes on very slowly, but it comes on, and I learned by just looking at every book I could find, and I'm not alone. Most architects I know will tell you exactly the same thing, who have done a lot of Hispanic architecture. And it's a very sweet little combination of just the right stuff coming together at the right time in the right place. And it's very difficult.
Different things.
No, and
plastered on.
Can we also say that what we're doing is something that the owner of this property will thank us for 20 years down the line, because this is the single most important component. I'm not counting on the lodge itself, but this is the single biggest and newest component of that whole property, and it really needs to be done very carefully. And I think that I think all the work that we've done as a subcommittee and the work that you've done is paying off. I mean, we're absolutely on the right track, in my opinion.
I just have to push.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
very,
for.
it's been difficult. Most of my background has been in.
We understand. We all
storing Neutras and Schindler.
Right there, Casey.
No, I mean, from any discipline, any focus, to come to a very plastic, picturesque building type is very difficult.
Romantic, and it really is.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
What happened to you guys earlier with the use of the word romantic?
Oh, Susan said stop using words and then changing them.
Yeah, in the minutes.
In the draft minutes.
Serendipity is also a very important
Yes.
adjective to describe what you're...
Yeah. Yes.
Subcommittee meeting and then and continue this for the next meeting. Both.
Set up the subcommittee and...
If it can be subcommittee, if you're in a rush, I would say subcommittee in 1 week, a meeting in 2.
Right.
If they
allocate
allocate resources...
I have no idea if I'm available, but I probably am, but I don't really know. So should we have a motion to set up if we set up a subcommittee meeting for next week, add Don Sharp to the subcommittee, and then to agendize the return of this Mission Village in 2 weeks?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?